If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just be love and watch the smiles come, bring my spirits up. There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.
Welcome back to my coverage of the Kristin Smart trial. I already mentioned that due to the sparse, delayed information being released on this trial, some of the information comes after I've already posted my episode, and I want to make sure I cover these tidbits at the beginning of each episode before I go into the new details of the current court day. I wanted to go back to Vanessa Shields' testimony, which was one of Kristin's dorm mates. It was confirmed during the trial by the defense that San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office did not interview her until February of 2022. She said she'd been waiting for their call for a long time. These are the things that make me furious. So much sloppy police work is really what caused problems in this case, in my opinion. Most of the experienced attorneys are surprised at the way this trial is being done with the two juries and the way they're handling these juries. And a lot of attorneys who are experienced say they've never even heard of it being done this way, which I wasn't aware it was that uncommon or rare. And it's the way they're doing it, not just the two-jury system. As usual, I've already found conflicting coverage, and this is why I read a minimum of 5 different articles and a minimum of 5 different video news coverages each day for court before I put my data together and comprise my research to produce these episodes. I usually can catch the inconsistencies, but here's a minor one that I caught regarding previous testimony of Kendra Coed. She originally was said to have no comment regarding changing her Facebook profile picture with the purple the day after her interview. And here it confirms that she supposedly did say that the symbol was to represent Kristin. So it's nothing major, but it's just irritating that the coverage just gets construed and lost in translation, probably. I was hoping there would be more coverage of this trial, but unfortunately the Parkland shooter sentencing phase is going on at the same time, so it seems like the coverage is really leaning towards that. Once that's over, I imagine we're going to get more coverage for Kristin's case, hopefully. As all of you know who follow my channel, you know originally I was planning on being in the courtroom here in San Luis Obispo, and then they did the change of venue. So I planned on attending via Zoom. That was all denied. The public does not have access, and even the people who are allowed in the courtroom cannot do video. They can only do still photography. Many people wonder why. Why the special treatment in this case? To me, and it's an example of how a high-powered attorney can make a big difference in your case. Let us not forget that Paul's defense attorney, Robert Sanger, successfully defended Michael Jackson against his molestation charges that were alleged. I want someone to please explain to me how the Flores family can afford a high-profile attorney such as Sanger. Or is it the high-profile case and the publicity that's considered sort of a partial payment as he's exposed if he wins? If he loses, it's probably not going to be good on his record, I would say. Give me your opinion in the comments. So what I want to share with you in a continued attempt to release information to the public, here are some of the particulars and how the media is trying to get access. As stated here, a news coalition has filed a motion to unseal records for the Kristin Smart case. This article is from July 19th of 2022. The news coalition includes the Tribune, ABC News, Associated Press, and the LA Times. According to the Monterey County Superior Court Executive Officer, the hearing is set for August 4th at 3 p.m. of the year 2022. The motion was filed on July 14th, 2022, to both unseal the records and allow remote online access to them. Between April 20th, 2022 and July 5th, 2022, it is stated that only 12% of the court filings that do not pertain to media access are public. Out of 243 records, 166 of those are sealed. The coalition wants all records unsealed starting April 20th, 2022. Openness and press coverage empower the public. They also allow us to supervise the work of law enforcement and the judicial branch. The sealing is not justified according to the motion. And you'll see pages 1 through 5, and there's 35 total pages of the motion, which is available online. I say this is a good idea, especially with current events, the corruption in law enforcement and judges and courts and all that. We definitely, as the public, should have access to these things. They keep trying to hide things from us. I'm not talking about this case. I'm just saying in general, okay? Page 2 goes over vindicating the public rights and being essential to democracy. Page 3 speaks of it being a violation of the First Amendment rights to access. And let's see, also talks about the case law and the statutes on pages 4, and page 5 is where the motion begins. So hopefully this will get us better access to all the different information related to the trial. And like I said, if you want to see all 35 pages, it is available online. Frankly, it reminds me of why I have a hard time trusting the quote-unquote justice system in America. It's supposed to be justice for all, and my whole life, all I've seen is the more money you have, the less likely you're going to be in trouble. The better lawyer you have, the more likely you're going to get off. It's just not a fair system at all, in my opinion. LINDSEY Smart Stewart, Kristin's sister, was the next to testify on Monday, July 25th, 2022, as her parents Denise and Stan Smart looked on from the courtroom. LINDSEY was only 14 years old when Kristin disappeared in May of 1996. She talked about Kristin's support in attending her swim meets, etc. She talked a lot about how close they were, how disappointed she was that Kristin didn't attend her 8th grade graduation. LINDSEY is now herself a mother of 3 daughters. She recalled how her family was so close, and especially the siblings. She was only on the stand for about 30 minutes compared to her mother, Denise, which was approximately an hour and a half, and then her father, Stan, who was on the stand for approximately 2.5 hours. Sanger also asked LINDSEY about Kristin's trips to Hawaii the year before she disappeared, which he keeps bringing up. And apparently we're to believe Kristin is living a happy tropical life undercover in Hawaii, which I'm just going to call BS on that. If that's the best they have, my confidence is bolstered as far as the outcome of the trial, ending with justice for Kristin and her family. The testimony was emotional, and one of the things LINDSEY said is she remembered how Kristin would always light up every time that she saw her. Here's more regarding Margarita Campos' testimony. As you recall, she was a dorm mate and a good friend who lived in the dorm very close to Kristin at Cal Poly. Margarita went on to explain that she and Kristin spent a lot of time together because Kristin did not get along with her roommate, which is very common. One of my best friends in college didn't get along with her roommate. Not everybody matches up personality-wise. But anywho, she told the court that she spent most of the day with Kristin, the last day she was seen alive, and she recalled going to the off-campus party with Kristin before they said goodbye, and Margarita went back to the dorm as Kristin was looking for another party. She admitted she often relives the fateful day. She spoke on her regrets that they didn't stay together.
The state then called a woman by the name of Margarita Campos to the stand, and she was a friend of Smart's. She was with her the night that she disappeared. During her testimony, she said, quote, "It was a bummer memory. That was a memory I replayed in my head many times. I shouldn't have left her by herself, and she shouldn't have left me by myself. We should have stuck together."
The prosecution asked Margarita to recall her previous interviews with investigators, where she described how Paul Flores made her and Kristin feel uncomfortable when he was working at the campus market. First, I've heard that he worked at the market, which is creepy, actually. It's not like him working there is some type of major revelation, but I get used to hearing the same known facts over and over and over to the point where I perk up when I hear anything new. Regardless, as to how insignificant it might be. Margarita said she gave Kristin her dorm room key, and Kristin was very upset with Margarita because she wouldn't stay out with her. Margarita admitted that both she and Kristin were being stubborn and that she wishes every day that they would have stuck together that night. Margarita told the court how she and Kristin were supposed to study together the next morning, but the knock on the door never came. After the lunch break, once the trial resumed, 2 other fellow students who were at the party with Kristin attended and testified. The first of those 2 was a former student of Cal Poly named KETCHAM. He testified about his interactions with Kristin at the Crandall Way party the night she disappeared. He spoke on the interactions between Paul and Kristin as well, and how they were both very intoxicated. Without listing the specifics, it was said the defense pointed out inconsistencies compared to other interviews that Ross did 26 years ago. Well, that was a long time ago. I imagine some things might slightly change. Next to testify was Cheryl Anderson-Manzer. All of us who've been following the case over the years recognize this name. Cheryl was the last to see Kristin and Paul as they departed near the dorms, where he said, "She went that way and I went that way." Kristin was being held by the waist by Paul, and Paul had asked Cheryl for a hug and a kiss before they walked away. She, of course, refused Paul's advances. Cheryl spoke of how much she deeply regrets leaving Kristin with Paul that night. Once again, the defense pointed out inconsistencies compared to her testimony with investigators 26 years ago. I'm not sure why court coverage does not mention the details on what these inconsistencies were. I imagine they were probably quite minor. I'd be interested to know the details. Maybe that'll come out later.
Yesterday, another one of the witnesses that took the stand for this state was another friend of Kristin who was with her that night. Cheryl Manzer was with her that night, and she talked about what they did afterwards. She said, "Tim was going to walk myself and Kristin home. Kristin, was very intoxicated, needed help standing. Her speech was slurred. All 3 of us walked together. They started walking. Paul appeared sort of suddenly and said he was going to walk us to the dorms. The 4 of us continued walking a ways, and at some point I told Tim that we could continue on without him because I knew that Tim lived in another direction." And it's just chilling to think about what that poor young lady has to, live with now. The fact that she let Kristin off with Paul Flores.
Oh my gosh, I want to know what the jurors are thinking so badly. It's very clear the prosecution is setting the stage for what a creepy guy Paul was. At work, at school, at parties, in the dorm, pretty much everywhere he went. Noticed by many people. The trial is expected to resume on Tuesday and then be in recess for the remainder of the week. All right, so heading into Tuesday, July 26, 2022, they did get a late start in court today. They were not into the courtroom until 10:30. And lo and behold, there was an announcement that there's another postponement. Since we do have some downtime from the actual trial, I'd like to take this opportunity to touch on Judge Jennifer O'Keefe, who is the judge presiding over the trial. Jennifer was a chief deputy public defender for Monterey County prior to being appointed to be a judge by Governor Gavin Newsom on March 25, 2021. Marking the first time in more than 40 years since a public defender was named a judge, according to Monterey County Weekly newspaper. So far, she seems fair, impartial, and competent. And it's ironic that she's literally only 1 year older than Kristin would be today if Kristin was still alive. Judge Jennifer O'Keefe went on to explain the delay was unexpected due to an emergency of one of the jurors. She didn't want to run through the case list of alternatives. And I'm going to insert a video here that kind of covers those alternatives.
If any one juror gets sick or has any family emergency or for any reason can't be there, they have to either stop everything until that juror is available again, or excuse that juror and use one of the alternates.
However, only 2 weeks into the case against Paul and Ruben Flores, Worthington tells me that oftentimes judges prefer to hold off on running through their list of alternate jurors until later in the trial.
And if they get down to the last couple of days and somebody gets sick, they just put in one of the alternates, because they can be pretty safe that they'll get it done, and you won't lose any more jurors.
Worthington says that while a juror being unable to attend trial for 1 or 2 days is fairly commonplace, a prolonged absence could raise additional concerns.
We don't want to stop the whole trial for 2 weeks, for one juror to become available, because if you do that, you're liable to get other jurors start to become unavailable for some reason.
Judge Jennifer O'Keefe said the trial is currently running ahead of schedule, and the delay would not put them far behind. As you can tell in the video, experts admit that delays like this are not uncommon, and with a trial this long especially, more delays should be expected. Court will be in recess until next week, and here are some examples of testimony still to come. I'm looking forward to evidence and testimony that's under seal, as explained earlier in this video, with the News Coalition court filings. I hope you guys are enjoying my coverage of this case. I feel that none of the major court channels really want to dive too deep in it. It's so old that they're just halfway interested, but we will not stop.
We do expect to hear from 3 women that say they had interactions with the defendant when they were intoxicated and that he attempted inappropriate behavior, if you will. This was allowed in by the judge. As you could imagine, the defense was adamantly against that testimony coming in. We haven't seen it yet, but that type of character building against the defendant by the state, that was a pretty big ruling, was it not, by the judge to allow these other 3 women to tell a portion of their stories that said basically that this defendant was taking advantage of their situation when they were inebriated.
Certainly it's a big ruling. At the same time, those women are currently still alive to tell the tale of what occurred between them and Mr. Flores. So, whether the jurors are going to think that the behavior in those situations indicates that, yes, this is someone who killed Ms. Smart beyond a reasonable doubt, I don't know if it'll go to that level. We'll have to see how the testimony goes. If the prosecutors are persuasive in their arguments and in the story that they tell, they might be able to reach jurors and come back with a guilty verdict. But the defense is obviously going to be highly focused on the fact that we are missing this key forensic evidence that would be necessary to actually link Mr. Flores to the murder. It's going to boil down to who tells a better story, I think, in this particular case.
As always, justice for Kristin.
If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just be love and watch the smiles come.
Thanks for watching.
Bring my spirits up.
Don't forget to stop and smell the flowers.
There's some shit I like to fix, but I still